Welcome to podcast number 478. Today we're going to talk about checklists. Stay with us.
This is the Elevate Construction Podcast, delivering remarkable content for workers, leaders, and companies in construction wanting to take their next step. Get ready to step out of your comfort zone with Jason Schroeder as he encourages you to do better, live a remarkable life, and expect more. Let's go.
Welcome everybody. I hope you're doing well. I am safely driving on the 51 here in Arizona. It is 8:43 a.m. Last night we got in at 2 a.m. with the little kiddos. I got some sleep for about 6 hours, and now I'm on my way to do a simulation and another boot camp, which I'm super stoked about. I was able to spend time this week with Petticoat Smith. It was a remarkable experience. That company is changing in ways for the better that I am so proud of because of the things that they're doing. It's absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to get caught up here with a couple little podcasts here this week. I think this is 478, so I've got two more. And today is Thursday, Friday, so I'll get two more in addition to this one, and we'll be right on track and jamming out. So I want to talk about checklists. And don't get bored, please. This is not a boring podcast. I want to focus our minds to the benefit of such a thing and the fact that we probably discount the benefit of a checklist. And I'll tell you, I grew up again at Hensel Phelps, where we had port checklists, we had in-wall inspection checklists, we had checklists for about everything that we were supposed to be doing. I remember the field and office guide putting it on a when the technology was finally around, but putting it on a text to voice, meaning it would read the text to you. And on my way back and forth to Intel, I would listen to the manual and then go through the really good checklist. And so my mind has really kind of used checklists throughout my life when it comes to quality, when it comes to things that need to be doing, I need to be doing, when it comes to standard work, whatever the case may be. And I feel that a lot of people kind of poo-poo checklists, thinking that they're probably outdated and not useful, and that there's a better way to do it. And we all know that nowadays there's all these time management softwares, which some of them are really, really good, quite frankly, but that claim to get rid of to-do lists and checklists and head into a normal, or like a not normal, make the software and the new methods of doing things kind of the norm. And I think that's fine as long as they work. But the concept of a checklist is really, really good. And let me start out with kind of a comparison here. Anybody that thinks that a checklist isn't helpful, I'd like to ask you this question. Would you like it if your pilot didn't have a checklist? It was interesting to hear some of the stories and read some of these in books and actually hear from colleagues some of the stories early on of manufacturing and operation failures, specifically within the what would you call it, the airline industry, right? Boeing, some of their first planes, they had some massive failures and even an accident because they had a very complex machine and they didn't have standard work, standard checklists. And so now when you go into a plane, and I do it all the time. I was there last night. The pilots are going through their standard checklist to make sure that everything is done, and they have standard work and standard checklists, and so do the dang it, what do you call the flight towers, the air traffic control towers? They have checklists, standard work that tells you what to do with certain types of airplanes if you encounter a certain malfunction or a certain problem. And, I don't want to jinx any of us who fly a lot, but I can't remember the last time there was an actual plane crash in the United States. I mean, it's been at least 20 years to my knowledge since there's been like a major accident. Yes, throwing a blade in the engine and having accidents like that happens every now and then, right? But an actual major crash hasn't happened, and I would attribute it, and from some of the research that I've done, I attribute it quite a bit to the fact that we have standard work and checklists. So my question is, for anybody that would be negative about checklists, would we be okay if our pilot didn't use checklists? Excuse me. I'll give you another example. Doctors, would you be happy if in standard work, or the nurses or the specialists or the technicians or the doctors didn't use checklists. I'll give you just one brief example. When you have pneumonia patients, they have standard checklists that will say how to administer to a patient with pneumonia. One of those key processes is to incline a pneumonia patient's bed so that they can have a better range of breathing. They don't drown in their lungs, and they have more breathing capacity inside their lungs, and that practice right there reduces deaths. I don't get me lying, but I think it's around 60%. Like, it is amazing just how inclining a pneumonia patient's bed, how effective that is to prevent death and the patient from being overwhelmed with pneumonia. And they have that now on standard checklists. They have that as a part of standard work. They have that as a part of standard procedure when caring for those patients. So my question would be, when you're at the dentist, or when you are getting something from the pharmacy, or when you're at the doctor, would you be okay if they didn't use standard work, lessons learned from history, and checklists? I think the answer would be no. And we can go down to just about anything, right? Standard work in manufacturing plants, standard work when you buy a car. So if you bought a Ford or a Toyota, would you be okay if they didn't use checklists? Would you be okay if the pilots didn't, if the doctors didn't? Would you be okay if food handlers didn't use checklists? Would you be okay? I mean, I could just keep going on and on. And the point is that you do want those professionals, because you want the absolute best care. You do want those professionals using checklists. You do want them using standard work, and you do want them using the lessons learned from history. So my point is, we should do the same. And so in construction, we use checklists for each of our processes. Every crew should have a checklist or a visual feature of work board for anything that they install. We've been doing this for hundreds of years. We know how to do it. We should be using checklists for in-wall inspections. We should be using them for ceiling inspections. We should be using them for concrete placement. I don't know if I already said that. And so I would just say, a beautiful, simple, to-the-point checklist that crews actually follow and reference every time is a very, very, very powerful thing. And I was talking about this concept to somebody the other day. I was in a leadership team meeting, and the chief financial officer who oversees the accounting and actually used to do payroll, like, brightened up and opened her eyes really wide and was like, you know what? I just realized something. I have never in 10 years been late with payroll. And every time I do it, I use a checklist. Every time I do it, I make sure their names are entered properly. Every time I do it, I have a system to check their hours. Every time I do it, and she just kept going on. And she was like, I am probably the best in this area, in this business, at accounting and payroll. And I never make a mistake. However, every single time I use a checklist. And so I am not advocating useless checklists. I'm not advocating checklists that have too many items. I'm not advocating that we recreate them all the time. I'm not advocating anything other than, can we learn from the lessons of history from our forebears, to use kind of a cliche term, from the people that have gone before, and create remarkably simple, effective, and relevant checklists and use them in our standard work to drive and recreate quality consistently. I really do believe this is a key for us in construction, and it's an art that I don't want us to lose. And I can tell you there are companies, peoples, individuals, and crews that are losing it for the sake of convenience. On we go.
Please join us next time in elevating the entire construction experience for workers, leaders, and companies coast to coast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to share with your construction colleagues and help us spread the word by rating, subscribing, and leaving a review on your